Okay, we're getting personal here. Relationships. That funny thing we get into when we choose someone that we like and we think that they are a suitable person to spend our time with. Over the years, of course, as a normal human being, we get into some relationships that have taught us some lessons. So I thought it would be a good video to share with you what I've learned through my relationships. There are 5 guys, not 5 guys, but there are 5 guys that taught me some lessons in the relationships that I had. Obviously, I'm not disclosing anyone's name, but if you do know me personally and you've known me for a while, then you might have a clue on who I'm talking about. And if it's you that I'm talking about, then hi, sorry, but this is very valuable lessons, and so thank you for teaching me them. So here we go. The 5 guys that I was with that taught me some lessons about relationships. So I'm gonna call this one Romeo. The reason why I call him Romeo is he was my first proper boyfriend, and also because our story kind of is a bit like the storyline in Romeo and Juliet, where we had to keep our relationship secret because unfortunately we weren't really allowed to be together. I'm not gonna go into those details, but either way. And I won't lie, it was hard because it was a teenage romance. I honestly don't have a bad word to say. He has a heart of gold, and honestly, to have him as my first boyfriend, I feel almost quite proud. And this was something that I learned from our relationship. The first thing is that it's really hard to be with someone and not be allowed to show it. And naturally, when you're a teenager, you kind of want to show off because you feel like you're an adult, you're growing up, you're in a relationship. And of course, you really like that person enough that you want to tell everybody and share it off. But I had to keep it secret. And that was really, really difficult. And he was also one of the guys that, you know, TMI, but he was my first, if you know what I mean. And it was one of those moments where it was everything that it should be. And when I say it should be, it wasn't perfect, you know, there's no perfect moment, perfect time, perfect experience. But for me, it's an experience that I feel comfortable with because he was sensitive about it. He'd actually had it before, so it was my first time, not his. And obviously I was nervous like everyone normally is. And he helped me to feel comfortable. He made sure that I was okay as well. And I feel like that's how it should be. And I wish that was the same for everyone. That at school, when girls used to talk about it, they had kind of rushed into, they'd done it with someone that they didn't either care about, or it was just like one of those flings. And ultimately, I think a fair few of them had admitted at that time that even then they regretted it. To have someone that was, you know, that nice and was comforting and helpful in a way was what made the experience something that I can be comfortable if I think about. And if I was to talk about this with a daughter or a friend's daughter or something like that, then it's something that I would probably recommend. I quote, "He is the biggest prick I've ever met." 2013. This guy was a foolish decision. I fell into it a bit quick, I was a bit dazed, and I just didn't think about the fact that the distance would actually cause an issue. It was all about what he wanted, and then eventually he became less interested. I essentially turned into a bit of a doormat where I just did everything that he wanted to do, and I always went to his. And then it ended in a very hurtful way where he just suddenly stopped talking to me. And because we had that distance, it was a very easy thing for him to do. He wasn't responding to my texts, he wasn't responding to my calls, and that went on for 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks, radio silence. And so I was left like, what the hell is going on? And then he texts me to say that he wants it over. But then what hurt even more is that I then see on Facebook that he has a new girlfriend. And then it dawned on me. I realized then I had been cheated on that whole time, which is why he was like, oh no, sorry, I can't come down this time. Oh, I've just had to cancel because I got to see my nan. So the lessons. If someone likes you, there's no games. If someone is deliberately keeping you at arm's length, then you need to get out of that situation quick, because someone that likes you won't do that to you. It's disrespectful, and that's something that I wished I'd learned sooner. When relationship becomes just about sex, then you're being used. If there's no little moments of romance or any indication that the other person actually does care and tries to show you in other ways, then you're being used. Another lesson is that sometimes people are just dicks, okay? Some are not going to be the way that you thought them. You're going to see them in a different light, and then afterwards you're going to be like, oh, wow, okay, I had a filter on. When he finally read and responded to one of my messages, because I had lent him my headphones and obviously I wanted them back, he sent them back broken. I think especially when someone behaves in that kind of way after a relationship, really twists a knife even more. Okay, third's the charm. This was my third boyfriend and also longest relationship that I'd ever had. And to be honest, it was a good relationship. I got very hurt at the end when it did end because it was quite out of the blue. For someone to come and say to you, I don't love you anymore, is possibly one of the most hurtful things that I have ever heard. And it took me a while to get over that. Unfortunately, after it ended, it put me in a very bad place. And if anything, it taught me the most about myself. There were moments where we just spent so much time together. We lived together, we were at the same uni. Sometimes we had the same classes because our courses overlapped, and it was a lot of time together. We had some great highs, but we also had some lows. And the problem was that a lot of the time when I would feel like everything's going wrong, I would run away. And he'd obviously come after me, and then I'd say to him, you don't care about me, even though obviously it shows that he cares because he's still going after me. And unfortunately, I was in that kind of headspace because I'd had quite a few bad years that obviously I was still processing emotions. Now, that isn't an excuse for some of the behaviors that I had, and these are the things that I learned. Sometimes a relationship will highlight a problem that you were never aware of before. I wasn't aware that I had a very attached style of loving, and it was also because I had abandonment issues. Things haven't been the best in life, and I was always afraid of losing people that I cared about. So naturally, I would cling on to them more. But the problem is when you cling on to someone more, it's very suffocating. Another thing is that you cannot take your emotions out on people. Unfortunately, because of some of the things that I'd been going through, I wasn't very good at handling my emotions. Thing is, as much as someone wants to help you and are trying to help you, you need to be aware of how you are behaving because you are hurting that person as well. And you need to be careful that you don't step over that. Another thing that I learned very, very hardly was that, of course, when you go from spending all your time together to not talking at all, it is super hard to go from that transition. I unfortunately found that so difficult that I kept trying to, stay in touch. I kept trying to message him and have him in my life, but ultimately you just can't do that. Unfortunately, I completely burned it where he eventually had to block me, and I completely understand that now. Of course, it was hurtful at the time because for me, I don't block people. At the end of the day, we need to heal, and you're never going to heal if you keep trying to open that wound. I think when you truly love someone, a piece of you does go with them. And with love, it becomes a scar. It's painful to heal at first, but that scar will then eventually heal and it will always stay with you. You will always remember that person, you will always remember the times, and I think you'll always appreciate some of those moments as well. And that doesn't mean to say the scar is a bad thing, it's just a part of your life. I don't know what to call this one. This one was a bit of a weird one because it started off really well, seemed like everything was going well, and then it kind of just So we just dated. It never got to the full terms of boyfriend and girlfriend because he never wanted to. And so I felt like I was constantly trying to prove myself to him because in the previous relationship, it ended in a way that I was not expecting. I felt like there was something wrong with me. And I feel like it's because I also lost some confidence. Unfortunately, I met someone that also made me feel like something was wrong with me because he would a lot of the time say, why are you being like this? This is overreacting all the time. Forgetting that obviously there were some things that I was also still trying to deal with, and it did not help in the slightest. If anything as well, particularly when I went away for a while to do my ski season, we were still talking, trying to keep a relationship up, and It just never seemed like he cared. He would call me up 3 times a day. So for that, I was like, well, okay, so he cares. But every conversation just was not how it should be. Every conversation, as soon as I put the phone down, I felt so annoyed because he'd spent the whole phone call just winding me up. And if anything, that's not cute. There is a line. The joking that I was getting, and he's obviously going to think differently, but the joking that I was getting was just so harsh. And every time I'd ask him to stop, he wouldn't. He'd keep going because he found that funny. But I still, for some reason, saw something. Okay, he was nice at the beginning, but it just turned into a very sour cherry that I did not like the taste of. When I look back, I honestly want to hit myself with a hardback book. So the lessons were that when you ask someone to stop joking because it's actually hurting you, if they keep doing it, that's not okay. If someone cannot respect your boundaries, then that is a big no-no. I'm not saying that people can't change, but if they don't make the effort, then you're gonna have to hang that apron up. When you want a relationship and the other one is a wall, I think it's best to walk away. If someone really likes you, they will make the effort. And of course, if someone is also not sure that they want the relationship, then I don't think that's fair to try and press someone into a relationship, as well as for you to want to have a relationship, but maybe you're wasting the time on the wrong person. If you're waiting for them to open their minds, then good luck, but that's not your responsibility. You shouldn't have to prove yourself to say that you're worthy of a relationship. You don't need to go out of your way to say, hey, look, it's gonna be okay if you have a relationship with me. Just let down your barrier. Ultimately, it's their decision, and if they're not backing down, then it's probably time to move away. Another lesson is that if someone makes you question yourself a lot, that is a massive red warning sign, especially if you feel like you can't be your true self. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't talk about certain things because, okay, yeah, he wasn't interested, but also he would kind of mock me for it. And obviously I didn't like that, but I kind of brushed it over as if that was nothing to be worried about. But of course it is, because if you can't be yourself with someone that you want to be in a relationship with, then it's going to be really hard to keep up in that relationship, as well as it's probably going to damage your own self-esteem anyway. So the final one. So the last relationship that ended was with the nice guy. And this guy seemed like everything was perfect to an extent, but then it started to get too much towards the end. So this was the first time that I actually had to end stuff. In fact, I actually had to block him because it was just too much. We weren't official, so again, we were seeing each other, but it felt very much like a relationship. However, it was a relationship that I actually didn't want. I had said from the start that I didn't want a relationship because I was still trying to get over my 3-year boyfriend, plus this guy that had been messing me about, and so I just wasn't really ready for anything. Unfortunately, the guy kind of thought that maybe he could change my mind, and as I said before, sometimes a person doesn't want a relationship because they're dealing with their past, and that was exactly me at the time. So in a way, I probably should have just been a lot colder to just get him to keep away so I probably wouldn't hurt him, but unfortunately that was kind of the situation. So he was really nice and he helped me to battle some of my demons. He was someone that I could speak very openly about the space that I was in, which was, you know, quite a dark space at the time. And so, you know, we talked about it and that was helpful for me. The problem was that his clinginess was too much. He was very overbearing. He was always needing to be around me and he felt like he was just closing in on me, and I just didn't like that, especially considering that I'd said I didn't really want a relationship. I felt quite panicky. I just didn't think he would fall for me as much as he did. Ooh, it was confusing for me as well as everyone else. I don't know what I did. I kind of do regret it because obviously I did kind of hurt someone, and that I don't want to do that. That's not my intention. So I tried to kind of pull away. I tried to, you know, get a bit of distance. And the problem was that when I was asking for distance and space, he would keep trying to come into it and to keep contact. And it was just something that I was struggling then to deal with. And so then when he used to message me, I used to feel like, how am I going to try and get some space from this guy that's not giving me any space? So I would try to be honest with him. I would send like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. So of course I was tired of getting the sorry, because then he would blast me afterwards if I didn't respond to his sorry message. And that was when I was like, no, I am not going to deal with this. And ultimately it got to a point where it was just too much and I had to pull the plug, so I had to block him. So the lesson here that I learned was that I actually got a taste of my past clinginess, and wow, I did not like it. So I can actually understand from my ex how he felt, especially when the relationship ended and I was trying to message him, and how uncomfortable it makes you feel. So again, I'm gonna say it, if you are going through a breakup, don't message your ex. It's not gonna have the effect that you think it's gonna have. Another thing that I learned is that sometimes some people can have the best intentions, but they go about it the wrong way. And that doesn't make them necessarily a bad person, but that's something that they need to work on. It's not your responsibility. And it's something that I kind of wish I did learn sooner, because of course I was trying to help him. I was trying to explain the situation of where I was coming from so it wouldn't hurt as much, but obviously I ended up hurting him anyway. So it was a very difficult situation. As I said before, he was a nice guy, but the problem was that it was just too overbearing, especially at the time where I was still trying to heal from a last relationship. So also, if you have to repeat yourself, it's a recipe for disaster. If you said something time and time again and going through a loop all the time, again, it's a red flag. You've got to learn when to cut it off, when to shut it down. And as dramatic as that sounds, it's for your own benefit and also the other person as well, because that's an opportunity for them to learn. Whether they learn that lesson, that's up to them, but you also need to protect yourself as well. You can't keep going through the same loop. You've got to break that cycle, because otherwise it's gonna get draining. It's gonna become a very miserable experience. And let's be honest, life is short and we don't really want to be spending it that way. Well, that was an interesting video, and now you know a little bit more about my personal life. So there was a lot in there. There was a lot of lessons, there was a lot of stories, and so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, then let me know in the comments. Let me know some of your stories of maybe some lessons that you learned from a past relationship. Also, if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, because I'm sure that you will enjoy the content that I've got coming out soon. Anyway guys, that's it for me now, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. Ciao for now.